everyone and welcome back to my At Silk. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Colour Eno Mechanical Pencils by Pilot. These are erasable coloured mechanical pencils, and if you watch art videos here on YouTube you may have seen these pencils around recently. I've been using them myself for over a year now and they are my favourite sketching pencils. A quick point to mention before I get started, this is not a sponsored video. I was not sent art supplies to review. I just really like these pencils and I wanted to review them for you guys. They come in 8 different colours. I have 3, violet, light blue and pink. The other colours available are yellow, orange, green, red and dark blue. They have a plastic body, a 0.7mm lead and a small rubber on the top with a little plastic cap over the rubber. These pencils are refillable and the refills come in packs of 6. The designs of these little packets may vary depending on where you live in the world, but these are the ones that I get here in Europe. You press down on the rubber end of the pencil in order to press the lead out. Sometimes these are called clicky pencils for that reason. And if you push too much lead out, these are also retractable, so you just hold the rubber end down and you can manually, with your other hand, push the lead back up into the pencil again. So to refill the pencils, you take the rubber cap off the end of the pencil and then the rubber itself. Then you open up your pack of refill leads, take out 1 lead, sometimes you can do 2 if you want. I normally just do 1 at a time, and you just pop it into the barrel of the pencil. You replace the rubber, you replace the rubber cap, and then you push down several times on the rubber in order to get the lead to start to come through to the end of your pencil. Sometimes you have to do this quite a bit in order to get the lead to feed through properly. If you have a pencil where you've used the rubber up and you can't pull it out in order to refill the pencil, there is a solution to this. You can take a pin and on the edge of the pencil you'll see there's a little indentation. You can push the pin through that little indentation and then just pull upwards and the rubber comes out really easy, and then you just refill like normal, taking a lead, putting it into the barrel and then replacing the rubber again. These are erasable coloured pencils and they do erase very well. I feel personally that they erase slightly better than the Prismacolor col-erase pencils, and the Prismacolor col-erase are the other brand of erasable coloured pencils on the market, or at least the other one that I've used and seen a lot of. Anyway, they do erase very well, but obviously the erasability of the coloured pencils depends partly on the paper you're using. Some papers just erase better than others, and of course it also depends on how heavy you're pressing. So as you can see here, I'm drawing with both a light hand and a heavy hand in order to show you guys the difference. And I'm also demonstrating this on 2 different types of papers. I'm using a very smooth sketchbook paper that I often use for markers, and then I have another paper that has a lot more tooth and more texture. I find that these pencils rub out better on paper that's smoother, but you do have to be very light. As with all pencils, if you press hard with a graphite pencil, you won't be able to rub it out completely. If you press hard with these pencils, you won't be able to rub it out completely. If you're very light, then they do rub out very well. If you've been having trouble with these pencils or the Prismacolor ones and you're finding that they're not rubbing out very well, it may just be that you're pressing a bit too hard, because you do need to be light. As you can see here, where I've pressed hard with the pencil, the lines still are showing, whereas where I've pressed very lightly, they rub out almost completely because I haven't indented the paper with the lead. They also work nicely on tan paper. Here I'm testing these out in my Strathmore Tone Tan sketchbook, and again they go on really nicely, they show up really nicely, even the very pale pink pencil, and they rub out very nicely on the paper too. The Strathmore paper is very good for pencils. Even though I use these pencils mainly for sketching, they are also really nice for writing and for taking notes, and I often use them in my notebook because it's just a really nice colourful way of writing, and as they're erasable you can rub out if you make mistakes, and I think it's just fun if you're taking notes at school or university or something. It's just a kind of a nice colourful way of brightening up sometimes very boring note taking. So now I'm going to do a little demonstration and discuss some of the pros and cons of working with these pencils. So a question you might have at this point in the video is, why sketch in colour in the first place? Why not just use graphite? I could do a whole separate video on this, but for me, really quickly here, I basically sketch in coloured pencils because the coloured pencil lead works and goes really well with the colouring mediums I use. So I use mostly markers, but I also use coloured pencils occasionally, and I also use watercolours. Sketching in coloured pencils is obviously a personal preference for me. It's also a habit. I've been using them, as I said, for over a year now. I haven't sketched in graphite for a long time, and I've just sort of got really used to working with them. I also like how pale the colours are. So if I don't rub out all my markings, they don't show up through the Copic markers or the watercolours. They just all blend together, in other words. So that's why I like using coloured pencils for sketching. So mechanical pencils on the whole are good if you don't want to keep stopping and sharpening your sketching pencil, and if you enjoy working with a finer point, which I think most of us do. Mechanical pencils can be very labour saving in this respect, and you can also just keep going. You don't have to keep stopping to sharpen your pencil, and I particularly like that about them. Big pro for me personally is that these pencils are really easy for me to get here in Europe, and I think they're also quite widely available in the US as well. I know that Jet Pens and Amazon stock them. The other big erasable coloured pencils on the market, as I mentioned earlier, are the Prismacolor col-erase pencils, and I've tried those before as well, but I can't get them open stock, so I can't just buy one pencil at a time. I have to buy the full pack, and they're much harder for me to find. I have to import them off Amazon, and anyway, I just can't get. So if I wanted to replace the red or the pink, I'd have to buy one of the pack of 12 again. So for me, it's just not very economical in the long term, particularly as I only used 2 or 3 colours at the most out of a pack. A complaint that I've heard people say is that these pencils don't layer very well, and I just wanted to talk about that point for a second here, because to be honest, I don't think that these are designed to be used for colouring in the same way as, say, a Prismacolor pencil or a Polychromos coloured pencil. They are artist pencils designed for layering. These are not designed for that. Now, obviously, I'm not the company, so I don't know, but the way they're marketed and the way that they're branded and sold, they're sold as sketching pencils. They're sold as writing pencils. The way that you see the marketing materials for these pencils, it all kind of points to me that these are for sketching or for writing. They're not for colouring. They're not meant to be layered and layered and layered. That being said, in the image that I'm colouring, you can see that I'm layering a little bit, I'm doing some smudging, I'm doing a little bit of blending, and they work very nicely for what I'm doing. But this is just a sketch. I would not use these pencils to colour a whole image, and as I said, I don't think they're designed for that. So another con, I guess, about these pencils is that I use the leads up really quickly. Now, I do a lot of sketching with them, and obviously the more you sketch, the more you use up the leads. But I have noticed that I get through a pack of refill leads, and that's 6 pencil leads, much quicker than I ever got through a single Prismacolor col-erase pencil. I think the reason for this is that I got really lazy when it came to sharpening my col-erase pencils, and so I'd be working with almost a blunt stub, and that's probably why they lasted a lot longer. Another niggle for me is the packaging of the refill leads. So you get 6 little leads in this packet, and I personally feel it's a big waste of space, because if you look in the packet, you could get a load more leads into that same package. And from an environmental point of view, I just feel that's wasteful, because I think you could fill the package right to the brim, and you'd get a lot. You could get a lot more into that package. I feel it's a waste of space, in other words. And I personally wish that I could buy bigger packs of leads. I get through the 6 refills really quickly, and I think I'd like to be able to buy 20 or so in a pack instead of just 6. That's not really a problem with the pencils. That's just a niggle I have about the packaging anyway. There are only 8 colours available in the colour Eno line, and the Prismacolor col-erase has 24 different colours, I think, so they have a lot more variety. Now, for me, this is not a big issue because these are primarily sketching pencils, and I only ever really use the 3 colours. I don't need more than that to sketch in. If these were colouring pencils, then this would be obviously a huge issue, but because I just use these to sketch, and these are sketching pencils, I don't find this a problem. But If you really like to have a really wide variety of colours in order to sketch in, then you might find that the Prismacolor col-erase line is better. And the other nice thing about the Prismacolor range was that it came with several browns, and it had a really nice terracotta colour, and the Pilot does not have any browns, and I do miss working with a brown. I did enjoy sketching in brown, so that is a downside for me, that the mechanical pencils do not come in a brown. Another thing to mention here, it could be a pro or a con depending how you look at it, but the lead of these pencils are quite soft. They're definitely softer and I guess I want to say creamier, but I'm not sure if that applies to pencils, but they get definitely softer than the Prismacolor col-erase pencils are. This could definitely be a good thing if you like to do sketches and then do some smudging and some shading and use a cotton bud or your finger to sort of create shadows and things, then having a softer leaded pencil is really good for this. However, if you are finding that your lead is breaking as you're sketching, after pressing hard on your pencil, and if you press hard on these pencils and you have too much lead out, the lead can break. So in order to avoid doing that, what I do is I don't have too much lead pushed out at once. So I only work with a very, very small amount of lead. So if you only push a little bit of lead out at a time, then you should have no trouble with the lead breaking. So that's about it for this review. I hope this video was helpful. If you've tried these pencils or want to try them, then let me know in the comments below. I like to hear how others feel about art supplies and how they approach them. I've been using these pencils pretty much daily, as I said, for a long time now, and so I'm biased in their favour, and I wouldn't review for you guys an art supply that I don't like or wouldn't personally recommend. I try hard to be fair in assessing the pros and cons for these sorts of things, especially when looking at what the art supply is designed to do. I think sometimes people are disappointed by art supplies because they were expecting the supply to do something it wasn't designed or made to do. If there's an art supply you think I should try, or one you see me using in videos and you'd like a more in-depth review and demonstration of, then let me know. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys next time.